For more on this, I'm joined by Angie Wong, Miami GOP Committeewoman. Angie Wong, great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. First of all, why is the CDC in chaos, and what has triggered this wave of resignations and walkouts?
Well, it looks like chaos because that's what they've made it look like. There's lots of walkouts. There are protests outside the buildings, as well as, well, television crews. Susan Morenez refused to work with President Trump. She refused his agenda, largely because it was very anti-vaccination. Instead, she says she cares more for the public safety and public health, and that's why she decided that she was no longer going to be working there. This very much differs from the rest of the Trump agencies, where they fall into line with what President Trump wants. And what he wants is a complete revamp of the CDC. He's very ambitious with his plans to make America healthy. Unfortunately, it looked like Susan Morenez did not want to comply with it.
And what impact could the firing of Susan Morenez have on public health in the US and globally, as the CDC is considered the premium public health agency of the world? And also, as you said, Donald Trump wants to revamp the CDC and a more anti-vax stance is coming in.
And that's right. And that is remains to be seen. But we do believe that Jim O'Neill will be a great replacement. Look, a lot of these things turn over. A lot of agency heads turn over, especially when there's a new administration. Clearly, you can't have clashes with the president's agenda. And if there's one sticking point, which is that, President Trump wants to review and perhaps get rid of vaccinations, well, and the CDC head doesn't want to comply to that, I think that's a real clash. And you don't want to spend your entire administration fighting. So this might be a good move. And given that the top deputies have also left, it's now a clean house for President Trump to fill in with his right people. I know that some of the early talks, especially with RFK Jr., who is the HHS head, they want to take food dyes out of our foods. They want to make our crops healthy. They want to make sure that sugar is actually sugar in our sugary drinks. So all those things are, they're gonna happen during this administration. You don't want people internally fighting you on these things, and that seems to be what the case was. So I would say give it some time, and we will see how this progresses. But no doubt, this is probably a good move for all parties involved.
And is the CDC at risk of actually being politicized? But we know Trump wanted RFK Jr. in this very position. So Trump really likes him. What's so special about him?
Well, it was just 1 year ago where RFK Jr. left the Democrat Party to join the Republican Party in support of Trump. So I think that the two men have gotten along since. RFK Jr. also very, very, very ambitious. He's long said that he did not like vaccinations, that he wants a complete review of vaccinations. Next month, he's going to be releasing a report likely to say that autism may be tied to some of these vaccinations. So that is something coming out in September. There's good room and reasons to question all these things. I applaud any elected official to review these things, because we do have lots of health problems. And if we stay status quo, well, we're going to continue having health issues. Some of our biggest issues would be obesity, for example. And still we have COVID injuries that people are still dealing with years later. So all of these things should be looked at. I'm glad that we have a team in place. Hopefully the brand new team who's going to be able to accomplish all the things that President Trump wants to do in his second term.
And Angie, I want to talk a little bit about Melania's Trump Vanity Fair cover. It's been celebrated by MAGA and all across social media, but let's be honest, it's fake. And my big question is, why isn't the First Lady being celebrated?
Well, that is a very good question. I mean, she is a former model, and she graces lots of magazine covers back in the day when she was a model. But when she became the First Lady under President Trump, people started having problems with that. I long think that the media is turning a new leaf on this. I think the smart ones, the smart outlets who embrace Trump rather than fighting him, they're going to survive this. Already Trump is looking at FCC violations for some of the other networks that have gone against him all these years, including ABC, CBS, and others. So it would be a smart move for media companies to start embracing the U.S. president and not just constantly attacking him. I think this is what Vanity Fair and Condé Nast, the owner, is trying to do here, is to say, look, we have a new editorial outlook on this. We want to celebrate the First Lady. Even if that cover might have been AI generated, it certainly caused a great noise amongst media yesterday. But no, Melania Trump absolutely belongs on every single cover. She's the First Lady, and she is the American Queen.
And I agree with you. I always think she looks absolutely amazing. I love Melania Trump. We have seen her actually become slightly more involved in children's safety around the world when it comes to wars that are going on, which is something that's actually quite remarkable. But you also said anti-Trump activist newsrooms are extinct like dinosaurs. Do you think outlets like Vanity Fair just basically risk becoming completely irrelevant if they can't get past their bias against the whole Trump family?
Yeah, so remember, it was only a few years ago when the editor-in-chief, Graydon Carter, called Trump all sorts of weird names and accused him of having small hands, right? So all that has to change. A lot of our newsrooms here in America have become activist newsrooms, and so much so that the Washington Post had a walkout of its editorial staff not so long ago because, well, the editor wanted a change. This is our U.S. president. We can't spend the next 4 years going after him. We actually have to report on hard news. So that has to go away, only because it's now out of fashion, quite honestly, to be out of anti-Trump. Half the country likes him, thinks he's doing a great job. And why wouldn't you cover that? Why wouldn't you appeal to those readers, right? So I think that's what's happening now. I think the smart news outlets know to cover Trump and cover him, whether maybe just in an unbiased way. You don't have to like him or not like him. You just have to remove the bias from your reporting. Go back to straight reporting again. And I think that is slowly happening. But unfortunately, there's still a lot of activists posing as journalists. And those are the ones that we have to get rid of, because those are the ones who are causing trouble within our news outlets.
And Angie, just before I let you go, I was speaking a little bit earlier to a guest that we had on the show about Narendra Modi, who's going to visit President Xi on Sunday. Is President Trump forcing a marriage of convenience between India and China with these huge tariffs that have been slapped on India? Apologies.
Yes, it certainly looks that way. This weekend, we're going to see the SCO summit, where it's going to be India, China, Russia. Absent is President Trump. But this is more symbolic than anything else. I mean, you're seeing 3 world leaders banding together, spending a weekend together at a summit. I think that is for Russia, China, and India to show strength and maybe a buddyhood amongst themselves, and maybe a band that's going to stand up against Trump. So we're going to see what President Trump and how he reacts to this. But either way, the 50% tariffs on India started this week. And certainly, having spoken to Indian media, they're not very happy about this. Their businesses are not happy about this. They don't have a way out. It almost forced them to, well, band with China and Russia. So we'll see how this whole thing plays out.
Angie Wong, it's always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us.